Now you keep that up and you can learn English all by yourself because I'm not going to be your teacher anymore. Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse.
In 1985, a strange little sci-fi film called Enemy Mine quietly slipped into theaters and promptly bombed at the box office. What should have been a surefire hit, directed by Wolfgang Petersen of Das Boot fame, starring Dennis Quaid and an Academy Award winner buried under pounds of alien makeup, somehow failed to connect with audiences. But this tale of a human and alien enemy stranded together on a hostile planet has lived on, gaining a devoted cult following that continues to grow nearly 4 decades later.
All right, now listen. Jerry.
For every Star Wars or alien that defines a generation, there are dozens of ambitious sci-fi visions that fall through the cracks. Enemy Mine is perhaps the perfect case study in how a troubled production, marketing missteps, and being slightly ahead of its time can doom a film's theatrical prospects, while its powerful themes and striking visuals ensure it never truly dies. Today, we're diving into the fascinating story behind Enemy Mine, a production so troubled they literally scrapped the entire film and started over from scratch midway through. From its origins as a Nebula-winning novella, to its transformation into a powerful allegory about overcoming hatred, this is the story of a sci-fi film that failed financially, but succeeded in ways its creators could never have imagined. Enemy Mine begins in the distant future of the 21st century, where humanity is locked in a bitter interstellar war with a reptilian alien race called the Drax. During a fierce space battle, human fighter pilot Willis Davidge, Dennis Quaid, and Drac pilot Jeriba Shigan, Louis Gossett Jr., engage in a dogfight that sends them both crashing onto Firene 4, a harsh, uninhabited planet with a poisonous atmosphere and dangerous native wildlife. Initially, the stranded enemies attempt to kill each other, continuing their species' conflict on a microscale. But as the brutal environment threatens their survival, they reluctantly form an uneasy alliance. Over time, this alliance evolves into genuine friendship as they learn each other's languages, cultures, and discover their shared humanity, or perhaps more accurately, their shared personhood. The story takes an unexpected turn when Jeriba, who belongs to a hermaphroditic species, becomes pregnant and eventually dies in childbirth, leaving Davidge to raise the alien child, Zammies. This transformation from sworn enemy to surrogate parent forms the emotional core of the film, challenging audiences to rethink notions of family, identity, and the artificial nature of hatred between different groups. What makes Enemy Mine's premise so compelling is how it strips away all societal structures that reinforce prejudice, forcing two beings programmed to hate each other to see past their differences when there's no one else to rely on but each other. It's Robinson Crusoe meets the Defiant Ones, in space, with a powerful anti-war message beating at its heart. The film's underlying philosophical depth raises it above typical sci-fi fare of its era, while contemporaries like Aliens and The Terminator leaned into action and horror elements. Enemy Mine took the road less traveled by focusing on intimate character development within its high-concept premise. The script, adapted from Barry B. Longyear's award-winning novella, preserves the source material's meditation on how artificial our societal divisions truly are when stripped of context. Particularly noteworthy is how the film handles the Drac culture, creating a fully realized alien society complete with its own spiritual beliefs, central text, the Talmud, and complex social structures. Jeriba isn't merely an alien other, but a being with lineage and tradition, proudly reciting their ancestry back 17 generations. This attention to cultural world-building was remarkably forward-thinking for mid-80s science fiction, predating similar approaches in later classics, like The Fifth Element and District 9, where alien cultures receive equally thoughtful development. Enemy Mine's journey to the screen was almost as dramatic as the story it tells. What began as a modestly budgeted sci-fi film spiraled into one of the most expensive productions of its time, complete with a director change, location upheaval, and a complete restart midway through filming. Originally, British director Richard Long Crane was hired to helm the project with a budget of roughly $17 million. Filming began in Budapest, Hungary in early 1984, with sets constructed and weeks of footage already captured. But 20th Century Fox executives were deeply unhappy with the dailies they were seeing.
Fine little woggy if I ever saw one.
Surprise, surprise. Looks a bit stringy to me, though.
The studio made the drastic decision to fire Long Crane, scrap all existing footage, and essentially start from scratch. Enter Wolfgang Petersen, the German director who had gained international acclaim for Das Boot. Petersen wasn't just hired to course correct, he was brought in to completely reimagine the film. The production relocated to Munich's Bavaria Studios, where massive, elaborately detailed alien landscape sets were constructed. Under Petersen's vision, the budget ballooned to approximately $40 million, $108 million in today's dollars, making it one of the most expensive films of 1985. The physical demands of the production were extraordinary. Louis Gossett Jr. endured a punishing makeup regimen that required 6 to 7 hours of application each morning and 2 hours of removal each night. The Oscar-winning actor had to report to the makeup chair at 3 a.m. to be ready for a 9 a.m. call time, then spend the day acting through layers of prosthetics, contact lenses, and a full-body suit. Gossett later revealed he nearly quit the film several times due to the physical and psychological toll of the makeup process. Dennis Quaid faced his own challenges, including harsh filming conditions in the manufactured alien landscapes. The practical effects team created a remarkably inhospitable environment filled with steam vents, rough terrain, and artificial weather conditions that made even basic scenes physically demanding. The screenplay itself underwent significant revisions during the production upheaval. Edward Camara wrote the initial adaptation of Barry Longyear's novella, but Petersen brought in writers Mary Ellen Barrett and Waylon Green for substantial rewrites to align with his vision for a more emotionally resonant film. This created a finished product that, while faithful to the novella's core themes, diverged in tone and emphasis. Behind the scenes, pressure mounted as the budget continued to expand. Fox executives, already nervous about the costly production overhaul, grew increasingly concerned about their investment, especially as sci-fi films without major franchise. Connections had shown inconsistent box office performance in the mid-80s. Enemy Mine arrived during the mid-80s sci-fi boom, when theaters were filled with space adventures, alien encounters, and futuristic warfare. Yet it managed to carve out a distinct identity through several notable creative choices that still impress viewers decades later. Most dramatically, Louis Gossett Jr.'s Jereba, Jerry Shigan, represents one of the most committed alien performances in cinema history. Rather than relying on quick cuts or obscured angles, Gossett's Drac is front and center throughout the film, requiring the actor to convey complex emotions through layers of prosthetics. The makeup work by Chris Wallace, who later directed The Fly 2, remains a high watermark of pre-CGI creature design. Each scale and ridge was handcrafted, with Gossett's expressive eyes serving as the emotional anchor that allowed audiences to connect with this truly alien being. The film also invented an entire Drac language and culture, rather than relying on convenient universal translators or English-speaking aliens.
What we gotta do?
Viewers experience the language barrier in real time as David struggles to learn Drac phrases, creating an authentic portrayal of cross-cultural communication rarely seen in space adventures. This patient approach to world-building extended to the Drac religious text, the Talmud, with its philosophical teachings that drive much of the later plot. Visually, Enemy Mine rejected the sterile, technology-driven aesthetic common in contemporary sci-fi. Instead, production designer Rolf Zietbauer created environments that felt primordial and organic. The hostile planet Phyrene 4 appears more like a prehistoric Earth than a typical alien world, with its volcanic vents, meteorological extremes, and dangerous indigenous creatures. This naturalistic approach contrasted sharply with the slick, mechanical designs of films like Tron or The Last Starfighter. Most boldly, Enemy Mine committed to its character study rather than introducing third-act action sequences or convenient plot devices. The film maintains its intimate focus on the relationship between two beings and, later, the surrogate father-child dynamic. This storytelling restraint was commercially risky, but artistically bold, especially when other sci-fi films of the era often sacrifice character development for spectacle. The film's exploration of pregnancy and childbirth in an alien species was particularly groundbreaking for 1985. While alien reproduction had been explored in horror contexts, most famously in Alien, Enemy Mine presented it as a sacred, natural process. Jerry's pregnancy and subsequent death during childbirth created one of cinema's most unusual family units, a human military pilot raising the child of his former enemy. Enemy Mine also stood apart in its explicit anti-war message during the heightened Cold War tensions of the Reagan era. While many 80s films incorporated military aesthetics and us versus them narratives, Enemy Mine deliberately deconstructed such binary thinking, suggesting that our differences are merely superficial when compared to our shared capacity for compassion, friendship, and family bonds. Enemy Mine landed in North American theaters on December 20th, 1985, with all the grace of a spacecraft crash landing on a hostile planet. Released amid the crowded Christmas season against formidable competition like Rocky IV, Spies Like Us, and The Color Purple, the film failed to find its audience. Opening weekend numbers were dismal, and the box office trajectory only worsened from there. When the dust settled, Enemy Mine had grossed just $12.3 million against its reported $40 million budget, making it one of the year's most significant financial failures. 20th Century Fox, already reeling from other expensive disappointments that year, had to absorb another major loss. For perspective, this box office performance was particularly devastating considering Fox had essentially paid for the film twice due to the production restart. Critics were divided, but generally lukewarm. While some praised the film's ambition and the performances of Quaid and Gossett Jr., others found the pacing problematic and the message heavy-handed. Roger Ebert gave it a moderate 2.5 stars, acknowledging its interesting ideas, but criticizing its awkward storytelling. The New York Times was harsher, calling it well-intentioned, but not very original. Many reviewers felt the film was torn between being a thoughtful allegory and an accessible sci-fi adventure, ultimately succeeding at neither. The marketing campaign bears significant responsibility for the film's commercial failure. 20th Century Fox struggled to position Enemy Mine effectively, with trailers and posters suggesting a conventional action adventure rather than the philosophical character study the film actually delivered. The theatrical poster featured Quaid and Gossett Jr., back-to-back with weapons drawn against a backdrop of explosions, setting audience expectations that were wildly misaligned with the contemplative film they would actually see. Perhaps most damaging was the title itself. Enemy Mine, a clever play on words in the novella, confused potential viewers who didn't catch the dual meaning. Many assumed it referred to a literal mine or explosive device rather than the possessive enemy of mine. This marketing confusion, combined with the release date placement, virtually ensured the film would struggle to find its intended audience. Despite the commercial disappointment, the film did receive recognition for its technical achievements. Chris Wallace's makeup effects earned particular praise, though the film's December release date meant it missed consideration for the 1985 Academy Awards. And by the following year, other effects-heavy films had captured industry attention. For the cast and crew, Enemy Mine's failure stung. Peterson, who had enjoyed significant success with Das Boot and The Never-Ending Story, faced his first major Hollywood disappointment. Quaid's leading man trajectory temporarily stalled, while Gossett Jr., despite delivering a remarkable performance, didn't see the career boost that might have come had the film succeeded. The most unfortunate aspect of the film's poor reception was how it overshadowed the genuine artistic merits and technical accomplishments. The innovative makeup work, practical effects, and ambitious themes demonstrated what science fiction could achieve when aiming beyond convention, qualities that would eventually lead to the film's rediscovery years later. Cultural legacy. Enemy Mine may have crashed on arrival, but like many ambitious sci-fi films of its era, it found new life on home video and cable television. Throughout the late 1980s and 1990s, repeated airings on HBO and other networks exposed the film to viewers who might never have chosen it in theaters, gradually building a dedicated following. What was initially dismissed as a box office failure has evolved into a recognized cult classic, particularly beloved by science fiction fans who appreciate its emphasis on character development over spectacle. Modern viewers, accustomed to the character-driven approach of shows like The Expanse or films like Arrival, often find Enemy Mine remarkably ahead of its time. The film's influence can be seen in later science fiction that explores themes of overcoming prejudice and forming unlikely bonds. Elements of its DNA appear in everything from District 9 to Avatar, particularly in how these works use science fiction as a vehicle for examining real-world divisions and prejudices. From a technical standpoint, Gossett Jr.'s performance remains a benchmark for acting through heavy prosthetics. The practical effects and makeup work continue to impress in an era dominated by CGI, demonstrating the lasting impact of tangible, physical creature design. Perhaps most significantly, Enemy Mine has earned scholarly attention for its exploration of masculinity, family structures, and cross-cultural understanding. Academic papers have analyzed its treatment of gender, particularly through the hermaphroditic Drac Society, and its subversion of military science fiction tropes popular during the Reagan era. While never reaching the widespread cultural recognition of contemporaries like Aliens or The Terminator, Enemy Mine has secured its place in science fiction history as an ambitious, thoughtfully crafted allegory that prioritized meaning over market appeal. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into one of sci-fi's most fascinating commercial failures, but artistic triumphs, hit that subscribe button now. Our channel explores the stories behind cult classics, troubled productions, and films that deserve a second look. Share your thoughts on Enemy Mine in the comments below, and tell us which underappreciated sci-fi gem you'd like us to cover next. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most meaningful connections come from the most unexpected encounters.